Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series on the Charter of Triunnia Genesis Codex. In this video, we focus on the dangers that are seen as coming up in the next era and can be particularly problematic for the healthy development of societies. The dangers are slavery and human trafficking, transhumanism, singularity mimics, reality entrapment, universal tyranny, succubi and incubi, the light at the end of the tunnel, and failure. This is our agenda for the video, so let's get into it. Before we move on, there's one more point to make about the basis of society. Now, this is all well and good if everybody is on the same team and they're all playing well to support each other. They're all operating in accordance with Book 1, Section 1 of the Law of Nations, where they are working together, where the population is unified, and they're working together for mutual advantage by combining their strength. If that is not the case, if there are a bunch of citizens who feel disengaged or the population is not united, or there's a lot of people within the territory that's occupied by the state, but who aren't actually a part of it, then what you have is not a real state or a real society. What you have is a micronation operating a slave plantation over an ignorant indigenous population. Micronation operating a slave plantation over an ignorant indigenous population. So that's another reason why we prefer explicit consent instead of relying on tacit consent, because we want to make sure, are we actually supporting that person properly, or are we using them maliciously? And we want to make sure we're not in that position because it is unconscionable. And right now, there's so much abuse that happens in how states work. And so we're trying to fix that here. Okay, onwards now. So the next section today is dangers. The Genesis Codex is meant as a foundational document to help a people navigate this reality through time. It contains everything that is pertinent to that mission in succinct form. What does it mean to navigate reality through time? It means that there are pitfalls or cliffs or unwanted destinies that we can know about and avoid. The Genesis Codex shows us where some pitfalls are and gives us tools to avoid them. It acts as a map for reality, and with this map, we can avoid, for example, extreme left or right politics because that's very dangerous for a society. Competent use of the law of thought can help us avoid self-destructive situations like that. It also calls out transhumanism as a threat and the wrong way to do human evolution. You can't evolve somebody else with technology. Only they can evolve themselves with their thinking. These are avoidable issues that can destabilize societies and destroy peoples. There are several different kinds of maps in the Genesis Codex. They are very powerful if you know how to use them effectively. The Codex sets a society up to act in alignment with universal laws much better than is presently done. This alignment will help keep that society going strong for a long time, so long as its people also remain strong and steadfast. It helps the people navigate this reality through time. The Genesis Codex recognizes dangers that are present as a result of universal law, as well as dangers that can happen in the future as a result of the trajectory of where this civilization is going. So in this section, we go through a bunch of dangers that we've recognized. And the first one, fairly obvious, slavery and human trafficking. Slavery, whether voluntary or involuntary, and human trafficking are dangers that threaten humanity. These aren't just like bad ideas that hurt people, they're actual dangerous things that threaten society and civilization because they are offenses against the self-directed life. An enlightened civilization, as well as a free and democratic society, requires that its people live a self-directed life. You own your life. And if you aren't owning it, if you aren't in control of it, then something else is. and that's a trespass. Both slavery and human trafficking steal the right to a self-directed life from their victims and trespass against the trying self and its human being. They steal the right to a self-directed life from their victims. Honor is all about not stealing anything from anyone, and here this theft is the right to a self-directed life, and therefore slavery and human trafficking are dishonorable. But it's more than that. Voluntary servitude, which is also known as employment, is a form of slavery and is recognized as a danger to humanity just the same as slavery. So employment also steals the right to a self-directed life from the employee. So employment is dishonorable for the same reasons as slavery because it functions the same way as slavery. The employee is a slave who must sell their time and labor to somebody else, who must work for somebody else just so they can survive on their own home planet. That's offensive and unconscionable. They never got rid of slavery. Slavery was never abolished. It was perfected. It was upgraded and made less obvious, but the function is still there. Yeah, the slaves now have a home and they can move around, but at the end of the day, they still have to work for somebody and they have no other option not to do it unless they become a slave master, an employer. But there's no other option that exists in society that makes these functions unnecessary. And so to solve this danger, to prevent it, or to solve it, to build a conscionable society where people can live a self-directed life means there can't be employment in that society. A different way has to be found that doesn't force people to work for their survival or to sell their labor just so they can live. There has to be another way. And I would suggest that if the society were to invest in generative infrastructure, whatever that is, that might be such a way. And when I think of generative infrastructure, I think of like a food forest. Maybe it's domed to keep the animals out. And you can combine that with rooms and housing. So the entire structure now, not only does it do food, it also provides warmth and shelter. So it meets the needs and it's producing resources that the people need. And that's the key part of generative. It has to produce things on its own without people intervening in it. And so a proper functioning civilization would construct itself in such a way that all of its people can live self-directed lives without relying on slavery to function. This condition does not exist in the world today. To survive, you must sell your time and labor. You must get a job just so you can survive. And that's unconscionable and it's unacceptable. So you can't call yourself an enlightened society if that's how it is. And so that's a danger there. Going back to the desire hierarchy, the company, the employer, will typically work towards the wealth desire anyway. And so they can't have too much power over the society. Otherwise, they'll arrest the society and steer it towards its own profit seeking direction, which is again offensive under Book 1, Section 1, because now the people aren't united and working together for mutual advantage. They're working for the advantage of the employer. So that's why slavery and human trafficking are huge dangers to civilization. I talked a lot about slavery here. I did not talk much about human trafficking. I hope that's obvious. That involves kidnapping, it involves all kinds of things, all of which is immoral and dishonorable behavior. So it's obvious. Let's go on to transhumanism now. Attempts to integrate a human being with a machine defile the human being and threaten humanity. Now, this is a problem because it's a misguided evolution. Evolution is a choice that trying cells make as a result of proper thinking. It requires that the thought process be kept in proper working order so that growth and adaptation can occur and the Triune Self can evolve according to the eternal order of progression, according to the law of thought. Interfering with this process by altering it with the machine corrupts the process and injures growth and adaptation, which prevents evolution. The desire to evolve by integrating with machines is a veiled desire for power, which will trap anyone who does so in nature. A proper functioning civilization respects and encourages proper evolution. Okay, so the current example right now is you get a chip in your head that gives you telepathic abilities, synthetic telepathy. First of all, you already have telepathic abilities anyway, you just don't know how to use them. Secondly, that machine, okay, that device, maybe it gives you something right now. If it can send thoughts and send language and send knowledge, it can also receive it. And then how do you know how to tell the difference between what's coming in through that device and what are your own thoughts? You probably won't be able to know. And whoever's controlling that device can send whatever thoughts they want into your head, and you have no defense against that. And so those thoughts will get in there. They will inculcate themselves into your mind if your mind is not developed enough to stop it, and you'll be mind controlled by the device. Straight up. It's bait. Synthetic telepathy, or I don't know, an augmented arm that shoots lasers or something. I don't know. These kinds of things are bait. They give you an ability, sure, but that's because you desired power over others to have that ability and you didn't know any better. Therefore, you're going to have to learn why that's a bad idea. Therefore, your thought for power is going to balance, which is why it's a trap. Nature will balance you. And you'll be on the receiving side of why having power over others isn't necessarily a great thing. You're going to learn that the hard way. When the devices with mind control get in there, they interfere with your thought process, and that's going to hurt your adaptation. You won't be able to think, and therefore you won't be able to evolve. Evolution does not happen through machines. It does not happen through technology. All of those are cope. Some of the technologies are useful tools, but that's not evolution, that's adaptation. And those are not the same thing. And it's only adaptation to the environment. It's not adaptation of yourself or to yourself. You can evolve out of your environment. You can totally outgrow it. Do it. Do that. Become powerful all by yourself without technology. That's totally possible and totally doable. And I suggest you do it. That's the proper way to evolve. Okay, along the lines of transhumanism, we also have Singularity Mimics. This is for the AI age. Attempts to upload a Triune Self's consciousness to a computer or internet, network, cloud, artificial intelligence system, singularity, etc., will result in death. The personality expressed through the computer will not be and cannot be the Triune Self and shall be considered or deemed a mimic. And I've also heard the term doppelganger or electronic doppelganger to describe the same phenomena. I'm using the term singularity mimic, singularity for AI, and mimic because it's a mimic, it's a mockery of the original. And usually there's lore around mimics. The mimic is this scary, violent thing. So you can't upload yourself to a computer. It doesn't work. And all the stories and movies that are about that, they're all wrong. What happens is, as soon as you separate yourself from your body, you're dead. That's literally the definition of death. At that point, the Triune Self goes on its life cycle to the next wherever it's going, and the body decomposes into nature. The Triune Self does not go into a computer, which is a physical thing, or into the code of the computer. Why would it even do that? It has better, more important things to do in the psychic atmosphere and then the mental atmospheres and so forth. It's got to go there and around a full cycle before it can incarnate again. And that can take like 1,000 years or something. Okay, so this is a ill-informed understanding of consciousness. Consciousness is a presence by which one is conscious. It is not physical and cannot be touched by computer code. Furthermore, the triune selves have four bodies: the physical body, psychic body, mental body, and noetic body. Only the physical body is actually physical. The others are not physical and cannot be touched by any physical means. The psyche cannot be touched by computer code. It cannot be touched by electronic wires and whatever else. So how are you going to copy what's not physical into a physical medium so that you can attempt to mimic its personality and then call it the triune self? It's not how it works. It can't work that way. Attempting to physically upload something that cannot be touched physically will not work. If, in the process, the triune self is separated from its human body, that separation will be permanent. It will be dead. They will have killed that person, and they will firstly face murder charges, and then whatever AI representation of the person that results, that's just a computer program, and it cannot in any way replace the original thing. Because the original thing, the triune self, is just way more powerful than anything that a computer program can represent. As a simple example, let's say a computer attempted to copy all of your memories. It couldn't. Your memories aren't stored in your body. They're stored in the noetic atmosphere, and they're referenced through the psychic atmosphere. So we say that maybe your body brain might have a pointer to the memory, and maybe they can copy the pointer because it's accessed physically, but they can't get to the thing the pointer points to because it's noetic. It's psychic, it's noetic. The computer just can't do it. It has no idea. These ideas stem from ignorance of the law. And in this ignorance, they're going to kill people. That's how dangerous this is. And that's why it's on the danger page. Propaganda danger. The mimic created by the process and claiming to be the triune self is not the triune self. Proponents of the process claiming otherwise are ignorant of the law, intoxicated by desires for fame, wealth, and power, and the wise society will regard them as enemies attempting an attack, because this will destroy the people of the society if it's allowed to run rampant, and especially if the people are ignorant as well. Continuing with our technological dangers, we also have 15124, reality entrapment. Advances in virtual reality bring the risk of locking the triune self inside the virtual reality. Advances in physical immortality bring the risk of locking the triune self inside nature. Both scenarios are offenses against the eternal order of progression and threaten humanity. So now there's this idea of trapping the triune self inside a container of some kind. We could say it's already trapped inside the human body. That's what the cross symbol represents. But now we go further. It's not enough that they're in the body because they can still function with some element of free will. Now we want to trap them in the virtual reality so that we can use their body in their ignorance. Or we want to trap them in nature so we can carry out a psychic war and they can't help. So trapped in nature used by enemies. While trapped in a virtual reality, the human body is accessible to others while its triune self is unable to use it. The danger is that the body can be used to perform actions without its triune self knowing or having any control over them. So you could get trapped in a virtual reality and your body's drugged up, enhanced, and used as some kind of super soldier to wage a war of some kind, and you are none the wiser. That's the danger. It could happen. It sounds outlandish right now, but we're designing a society to last thousands and millions of years. So it could happen one day, and so we have to protect our people against that. The triune self is a being of intelligence. Trapping it in nature is injurious to intelligences and their evolution. It can also be thought of as using nature itself as a jail or prisoner of war camp. Because evolution is all about outgrowing nature, ultimately. Nature will always tempt you with various kinds of feelings and sensations, hunger being one of them, for example. And everything you try, every single thrill, you'll never be truly satisfied. You always look for something more, some greater meaning. And that can't be found in nature. It comes from knowing yourself and learning not to be led around by nature. It comes from yourself and developing self discipline. And so, trapping a triune self in nature can be thought of as using nature itself as a jail. In the event of a psychic or spiritual war, we're just going to hold those people here, those beings here. A proper functioning civilization will in no way entrap the beings in its care. Universal tyranny. On its present course, humanity will spread its tyranny across the free will universe. Unless it learns the ways of peace and honor, respects its people, and learns how to build civilizations that neither defile nor trespass against its members, actions must eventually be taken to prevent and stop the spread of this tyranny. So, this is a note to future generations. That's what this one is. Humanity has a future right now, and it's tyranny. It's tyrannical. Right now, it goes planetary tyranny, and then they scale to universal tyranny when they achieve spaceflight. And they take their backwards way of running societies and put that on others. And it's just unacceptable in the greater universe. It's unacceptable here, but they don't know any better. And so, this is a warning that Triunnia, future generations, will eventually have to stop it. So, if they can be aware of this, they can prepare themselves to stop it at some point in the future. Humanity is not mature enough for a one world government. There's lots of people trying to build one, but if individual countries can't even figure out how to be peaceful in themselves and how to treat other nations peacefully at the nation to nation level, how are they going to do it at the planet to planet level? They're not, because they haven't learned the lessons. And the lessons are nations scale up. How you treat others individually scales up to how nations treat other nations, or how planets treat other planets, or how civilizations treat other civilizations. And when you go to one world government before learning that scaling lesson, then you're skipping ahead. That's not going to work. That's just going to continue the corruption at a larger scale, and that's how the tyranny spreads. And so, what we need here to solve this is an intervention in humanity right now. And then over time, that it'll start small at first, but over time, that intervention will get bigger and bigger, and it will break away and become its own thing. And that's how we end it. That's how we fix tyranny. And then hopefully the old tyrannical way becomes obsolete and loses energy. So, moral scaling is a thing. That's a law. That's what determines society at peace. Morality isn't just a good idea. It's a law that determines whether a triune self is worthy of the realm of permanence, a civilization is worthy of exploring space. Civilizations that fail the lesson of how to scale the actions of their individual triune selves peacefully and honorably, known as moral scaling, either destroy their planet or become blights upon the galaxy if they survive. People of the greater universe have no tolerance for the crap that goes on this planet. That's why there's interventions going on here. You got to learn character. You got to learn strength of character because it really is the only way out. And then your societies have to respect it. And you got to build societies that honor it and recognize it as well, which is not the case here. Okay, so now we get a little psychic here. 1, 5, 12, 6. Succubi and Incubi. Succubi and incubi are real. It's a real phenomenon that you can experience, and it's dangerous. They are encountered internally, which means in your imagination or in your mind, but you can still see them and you can still hear them and you can still feel them and talk to them and so forth. They are encountered internally as a result of injured digestion. That's a huge clue there that nobody gets. Your digestive system is failing first, and then you become infiltrated with the succubi. It's a result of injured digestion or parasitic infestation, loneliness, and or a persistent yet unfulfilled desire for sex or connection, all of which facilitate contact with lower elemental beings in the psyche. All desires get fulfilled one way or another. It's the law. And in this case, since it can't be fulfilled in the physical universe, a psychic being comes along and says, I'll happily fulfill that for you. Except it's a problem and it doesn't actually function how you think. But either way, it still facilitates balancing. So it's not a desired way to do balancing, but it's still balancing if you're wise to it. Many people are not wise to it and they succumb to it. They tempt with pleasure and coerce with guile so as to feed off the psychic body, and thus they lose their immortality. Because the immortal body is built up of psychic matter, which the human physical body produces over time, but if there's a being in there feeding off it, siphoning it from you, then you don't get it. It's a grave injury. Percival calls it a grave injury. On the journey to conscious immortality, the Triune Self must develop its perfect physical body in order to exist in the realm of permanence. So you build this body here while you are alive, you transfer your consciousness to it again here while you are alive, and then you can advance to the realm of permanence during your death. That's how you evolve, that's how you get immortality. The immortal body is constructed in part via astral germs paired with the vitality of solid germs. So astral is psychic and solid is physical. The succubi and incubi attach to the astral germs to gain more vitality via the generative force of the human body. And that means they have sex with the body so that they can obtain its vitality. In so doing, they consume the material the Triune Self needs to build its immortal body and thus gravely injure its vitality and immortality. And I said many people succumb because these things will appear as whatever they need to appear as in order to get your consent, in order for you not to fight them off. And so if you're a religious person, they tend to appear as God or Mary or some saint or whatever. And you not knowing any better, you'll fall for it. You'll think you're following the words of some master or whatever. But no, they just want your vitality. That's all they want. And the other thing is, people can become infatuated, and like entire religions have been founded based on conversations with the succubi. But they can only ever talk about nature. They cannot ever tell about anything on the intelligent side because they are elemental beings of nature and not intelligent beings. They can inflate the ego of the being they are attached to, and thus you get those religions. Their temptation is the ultimate self-respect test. The temptations of the succubi and or incubi are among the most intense tests of self-respect that nature can inflict upon a Triune Self. The Triune Self must betray itself and violate its self-respect in order to yield to the succubus or incubus. It must allow damage to its own being to occur by their action. It is the Triune Self's choice to accept or resist the influence of the succubus or incubus. Only those Triune Selves that pass this test can build the perfect physical body and ascend to the realm of permanence. So it's a self-respect test. It requires a lot of discipline, and you must betray yourself to allow it. You always have the choice to allow damage or not allow damage to occur to your being internally. This one requires you to allow it. And it is the topic of temptation. The quote, lead us not into temptation, very much applies here. That's what it's for. It's for this situation, which you will experience and must experience. Because in the desire hierarchy, the first desire entry point into nature is sex, or the balancing of opposites. And the only thing higher than that is self-knowledge. All other desires are lower than that. And all other desires are also lower than the sex desire. And so sex is the entry point into nature, It's also the exit. When you master it, you're done with nature. Mastering it means mastering it completely, understanding the role of opposites and their interplay, understanding how they are the same thing, understanding and balancing the Aya along with the sex part of your being, the generative part. And so all those things come together. The light at the end of the tunnel. This one will be controversial, but I have reasons for saying it this way. During death, the light at the end of the tunnel is an object in the astral plane, or radiant solid substate of matter, that is detected by the senses. As it is received through the senses, it is not of the triune self, and like all objects, it has a thought behind it. In this case, you're seeing a thought in the psychic atmosphere or in the astral plane, but you're still seeing a thought, and the thought isn't you. Interacting with that thought effectively means agreeing to experience its exteriorization, which in this case means one more trip in the reincarnation cycle and is demonstrable proof of the lack of knowledge of self and nature. If you knew how nature worked as thoughts and their life cycles and the law of thought, you would know that you're looking at a thought and that it's going to exteriorize into the physical plane. When you don't know that, you tend to, oh, what's this shiny thing? More bait. But you don't know it's bait, so you investigate it and you try it out, and then off you go. Trap sprung, you get to reincarnate again. It's also proof you don't know yourself, because it means that, oh, you thought that was a part of you. It's not a part of you. Maybe there's a desire in there bound up in it that you need to extract. That little bit of light is a part of you, but the thought itself is a being unto nature. It's not a part of you. It doesn't have any function in the constitution of a triune self. The triune self acts more as a process that thoughts can go through, but it's not part of the system itself. It's just a message in the system. Wrong direction. The realm of permanence in home is a higher dimension than the radiant solid substate of matter, or astral plane. It cannot be accessed by traversing laterally in the astral. And so that's another thing that's going on here. At the moment of death, the triune self separates from its body and therefore is in the astral at that point. And it's seeing something in the astral. Okay, but that means that you and that thing you're seeing are both in the astral. It's sibling level, it's the same. But we saw at the beginning of the Codex that the universe is hierarchical by dimensions, by mental dimensions. And the realm of permanence is much higher up than the psychic plane or the astral plane. So you don't want to go sideways. You don't want to interact with elements of the psychic atmosphere or of the astral plane during the moment of death. You want to step back and exit reality. Remember, we covered that you can enter and exit realities. You want to exit realities, step back, and keep doing that over and over and over again until you get to the realm of permanence, which can only be accessed by ascending upwards internally. Stepping back was another way to say that, into higher levels of consciousness, which will have a pulling back from or stepping out of kind of feeling, and traversing the great way while still alive. None of this after death hopeful jibber jabber means anything. What matters is what you do while you are still alive in preparation for that. And it's actual conscious actions of evolution, which requires knowledge of self and nature and balancing all your thoughts. If you're not doing that, you're still too young. You're just going to reincarnate again because you don't know any better. And the same idea about interacting with thoughts in the psychic atmosphere also applies to not just the light at the end of the tunnel, but also the stories of your friends and relatives waiting for you there. If you're seeing them in the psychic atmosphere, are they really there? Or is it just another thought? Is it your idea that you're going to be welcomed by people there? And it's just going to end up binding you back into nature because you're thinking about them as being beings in nature. And so your soul's like, oh, you want to go back to nature? Okay, off you go, back to nature. Here's why I'm taking this position. Story time. Now, I remember past my incarnation. I remember incarnating onto this planet. I remember the events that led up to it before incarnation. I remember training. I remember why I'm here and how to do what I do. So I've been able to recover a number of memories. And along with those memories, there are feelings and data associated with it. A memory recall is not the same thing as something that was just imagined. There's extra data associated around it, circumstances, thoughts I was thinking at the time, reasonings, so forth. And it's a consistent story. Also, got a little cheat ability that makes it so that I don't fall for the traps that ensnare everyone else. It's just a small little power. That's it. Otherwise, I just exist through nature like everybody else. Nothing particularly special. But the memory is super important. And what I remember as it relates to this, when I was preparing for incarnation here, I was actually training for death. That was part of it. And I remember the death training program, which was kind of like a mental version of a holodeck, but not a holodeck. But it was still little simulation there. So in that training, okay, initiate death, exit the body. Now I'm in the astral, and there's the light at the tunnel. I just went the other way. That was it. But I remember thinking, because the training was about avoiding that because it gets so many people. And I remember thinking, they fall for this? And so it was a long time when I recovered that memory, remembering why that they fall for it. But at that time, I could not explain why I had that thought. Why did I remember that they fall for this? What did they fall for? I didn't have the knowledge, or at least I lost the knowledge during incarnation because I had to cast most of it off. And so I had to regain some knowledge. And so when I found Thinking in Destiny and learned about the law of thought, I was able to put it together and realized they fell for a thought acting in nature, acting in the psychic atmosphere of nature. And they didn't know that. That's why they fell for it. There's my little data point to this debate, and that's why I put it here. Now, another danger, failure. Failure is a thing that is celebrated a lot, and sure, there are good reasons for doing so. There's much you can learn from failure. But too much of it is not a good thing. Inasmuch as there are valuable lessons to be learned from failure, the consistent failure to learn those lessons does present a kind of danger. The duty of every doer or trying self is to regenerate and restore their perfect body by learning and balancing their thoughts, preserving the perfectly balanced units in their bodies, traversing the great way, and ultimately exiting nature and returning to the eternal order of progression. This is evolution, and it is their duty. Failing in this task will keep them trapped in nature. A lot of people on Earth, they spend their lives just living it up, thrilling at the joys that nature throws at them, at all the different experiences that can be had, getting intoxicated with whatever adrenaline, wealth, sex, food, drink, and so forth. They keep doing that. They keep partying. They never learn from nature. Nobody evolves. Humanity gets in a rut. It keeps making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And so it's just stuck down here. Still, that keeps the civilization at a low level of consciousness. And that keeps them trapped in nature. We're setting this society up to help people out of nature by learning them better, giving them a bigger pathway than what's been had before. You still have to learn everything that's required out of that pathway, but at least you know the pathway's there and you've got a direction to it that is accurate. Knowledge devolves over time. And so what may have made sense thousands of years ago doesn't make any sense now. The consciousness of the people isn't the same. The writings have been degraded from what they originally were. And so, this little tip here about civilization, it's the duty of every civilization to assist their trying selves in their progression. And that's what we're doing with this don't be trapped in nature idea. And this is what evolution actually is. Trying to point you to the way, the proper way, so that you can evolve and so that we all can have a better society and a better life experience, especially going into the future. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it interesting and inspiring. There is a solution to tyranny. This is it. Your best thinking brought you here. The system's purpose is what it does. It's time for better thinking and a better system. In this video, we looked at dangers that are recognized by the Genesis Codex as being particularly problematic for the healthy development of societies. We looked at slavery and human trafficking, transhumanism, singularity mimics, reality entrapment, universal tyranny, succubi and incubi, the light at the end of the tunnel, and failure. The next video will explore the final recognitions in the Genesis Codex, such as aspects of self-determination and competencies with the law of thought. It should be posted in a week or two, but there is no regular posting schedule, so subscribe to be notified for when it comes out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.